Supreme War Marshal Thexmore stood alone in his private command chamber, staring at the tactical display that showed 13 human ships facing his empire's mightiest fleet. The numbers should have made this simple. 300 against 13 was not a battle, it was an execution. But nothing about this confrontation had been simple. The human broadcast had reached every ship in his fleet. For the first time in 3 centuries of conquest, his crews were asking questions instead of following orders. Medical officers were requesting permission to communicate with the human doctors. Engineers wanted to study the adaptive technology. Even his most loyal commanders were hesitating to fire on ships that carried hospitals and schools. War Marshal, his communication officer, announced, "You have an incoming priority message from the Imperial Palace." Thexmore closed his eyes. The Emperor would want explanations. How do you explain to an absolute ruler that 13 primitive ships had stopped his greatest fleet? Not with superior weapons, but with superior ideals. Put it through. Emperor Malthan's image appeared on the communication screen. His 4 eyes blazed with ancient fury. Thexmore, explain to me why a single human ship has been broadcasting propaganda throughout our empire for the past 6 hours. Your Imperial Majesty, the situation is complex. Complex? You have 300 warships. They have 13. Destroy them. Yes, Your Majesty. But sir, the humans they have rescued our pilots. They are treating Valian prisoners as guests. Their broadcast has reached 17 star systems. Our own crews are beginning to question. I do not care what they are doing. The Emperor roared. Destroy them immediately or I will find a war marshal who will. The communication ended, leaving Thexmore alone with an impossible decision. He could order the attack and crush the human fleet in minutes, but he knew that something fundamental had changed. The humans had introduced an idea that could not be destroyed with weapons, the idea that different species could coexist without conquest. Aboard the Thunderbolt, Captain Kim received a priority message from Admiral Shin. The words were simple but carried enormous weight. Kim, it's time to make history. Are you ready? Kim looked around his bridge. His crew had traveled farther from home than any humans in history. They had faced impossible odds and survived through courage, creativity, and compassion. Now they faced their greatest challenge yet. All hands, this is the captain. In a few moments, we're going to attempt something that has never been tried before. We're going to end a war without fighting it. He turned to his communication officer. Yunhana, open a channel to the Valian flagship. Full broadcast to all ships in the system. Channel open, sir. Kim took a deep breath and began to speak. Supreme War Marshal Thexmore, this is Captain Kim Daehyun. I know you're listening. I know your Emperor has ordered you to destroy us, and I know that you have the power to do it. Throughout the Valian fleet, crews listened to the human captain's words with growing amazement. But before you follow those orders, I want you to understand something about humans. We are not here because we think we are stronger than you. We are not here because we want to conquer your empire. We are here because we believe the galaxy is big enough for all of us to share. Kim paused, looking at the tactical display that showed 300 enemy ships surrounding his tiny fleet. War Marshal, you have spent centuries conquering other species because you believed strength was the only thing that mattered in this universe. But we offer you something different. We offer you the strength that comes from cooperation instead of conquest. The broadcast continued with a detailed proposal that stunned the Valian command. The humans weren't offering surrender or demanding victory. They were proposing something entirely new, a joint colonization project in neutral space, where humans and Valians could work together to build something neither species could create alone. We have colony ships ready to begin construction of research stations and peaceful settlements, Kim explained. Our medical ships carry technology that could help cure diseases that affect both our species. Our science vessels have made discoveries that we would gladly share with Valian researchers. Dr. Han Soo-young's voice joined the broadcast. War Marshal, I've been studying the biology of your rescued crew members. I believe human and Valian medical knowledge could be combined to develop treatments for genetic diseases that plague both our peoples. Song Youngji added her scientific perspective. The quantum physics principles we use for space travel could be adapted to Valian fusion technology, creating power sources more efficient than anything either species has developed alone. One by one, every human in the fleet added their voice to the broadcast. They shared their knowledge, their hopes, and their dreams for a galaxy where different species work together instead of destroying each other. The broadcast reached its climax when the Valian prisoners aboard the Thunderbolt spoke directly to their former comrades. "This is Subcommander Velkoth. I have spent the past day learning about human culture. They have shown me images of their homeworld, a planet where thousands of different species live together in harmony. They have told me about their history of wars and conflicts, and how they learned to resolve differences through cooperation instead of conquest." His voice carried across the fleet with growing strength. "My fellow Valians, I have seen the future these humans offer. It is not a future of weakness or surrender. It is a future where our strength is multiplied by working together instead of fighting alone." On the bridge of his flagship, War Marshal Thexmore listened to the human proposal with growing amazement. In 3 centuries of military service, no enemy had ever offered him partnership instead of surrender. No conquered species had ever suggested that their defeat could become mutual victory. His tactical officer spoke quietly. "War Marshal, what are your orders?" Thexmore looked at the tactical display, then at the communication screens showing human and Valian crew members working together in the Thunderbolt's medical bay. He thought about the Emperor's orders, about centuries of conquest, about the rigid military system that had defined his entire life. Then he made the decision that would change the course of galactic history. All ships, stand down weapons, open communication channels with the human fleet. His bridge crew stared at him in shock, but they obeyed. Across the Valian fleet, weapons powered down and communication arrays activated. "Captain Kim," Thexmore said, his voice carrying to both fleets. "This is War Marshal Thexmore of the Valian Imperial Navy. I am authorized to negotiate on behalf of the Empire." The words sent shockwaves through both fleets. For the first time in Valian history, a war marshal was choosing diplomacy over destruction. "I accept your proposal for joint colonization efforts," Thexmore continued, "but I must warn you, the Emperor will not approve of this decision. We may both face consequences for choosing cooperation over conquest." Captain Kim's response carried hope and determination. "War Marshal, throughout human history, the greatest changes have always required courage from people who were willing to risk everything for what they believed was right. We're honored to stand with you." 6 months later, the first joint human-Valian research station was completed in the neutral Kepler sector. Captain Kim served as the human director while War Marshal Thexmore, stripped of his military rank but not his honor, served as the Valian director. The station became a symbol of what was possible when different species chose cooperation over conflict. Human medical technology combined with Valian engineering created healing tools that neither species could have developed alone. Valian quantum physics merged with human creativity, produced innovations that amazed scientists throughout the galaxy. But the most important discovery was made by Dr. Han Soo-young and her Valian colleague, Dr. Keth Marin. Working together, they developed a cure for a genetic disease that had plagued both species for centuries. The treatment required components that only existed in human biology, combined with techniques that only Valian medicine had perfected. Standing in the station's main observation deck, Captain Kim looked out at the stars and reflected on their journey. They had traveled farther from home than any humans in history, faced impossible odds, and survived through courage and creativity. But their greatest victory wasn't defeating the Valian fleet or proving human technological capabilities. Their greatest victory was proving that in a galaxy full of different species, different cultures, and different dreams, there was always room for one more idea. The idea that strength comes not from the ability to destroy, but from the ability to build something better together. The Thunderbolt hung in space near the station, its hull scarred from battle but its mission complete. Earth was still impossibly far away, but they had accomplished something that would echo through the galaxy for generations. They had proven that sometimes the greatest exploration is not discovering new worlds, but discovering new ways for different peoples to live together among the stars. In the end, humanity's greatest weapon wasn't their quantum drives or adaptive armor or creative tactics. It was something much simpler and much more powerful: the unshakable belief that every person, no matter what species they belonged to, deserved a chance to reach for something better. Space around the asteroid field erupted with brilliant flashes of light, As 12 more human ships dropped out of quantum jump simultaneously, Admiral Shin Jung-ho stood on the bridge of the UES Defiance, studying the tactical situation with experienced eyes. "Status report," he ordered. "Sir, we have Captain Kim's position confirmed. He's trapped in the Kethvar asteroid field, surrounded by 300 Valian warships. His quantum drive is showing signs of stress from extended micro-distortion usage." Admiral Shin nodded grimly. The Thunderbolt had done exactly what it was supposed to do: penetrate deep into enemy space and prove human capabilities. But now the real test began. Fleet composition report. 12 ships total, sir. 4 destroyers, 3 cruisers, 2 science vessels, 2 hospital ships, and 1 colony transport. Any other admiral would have been horrified. This wasn't a battle fleet, it was a mixed collection of ships designed for exploration and colonization. Against 300 Valian warships, they should have had no chance at all. But Admiral Shin smiled. "Perfect. Open communication with all ships. Implement Formation 7. His officers looked confused. Formation 7 wasn't a battle formation. It was a defensive pattern designed to protect non-combat vessels during evacuation operations. "Sir," asked his tactical officer hesitantly, "shouldn't we use a more aggressive formation?" "Commander, the Valians expect us to fight like warriors. Instead, we're going to fight like humans." Aboard the Thunderbolt, Captain Kim watched his instruments as the human fleet took position around the asteroid field. He had expected reinforcements, but seeing them arrive filled him with both hope and concern. "Sir," reported Ominji, "our fleet is moving into defensive formation around us. But Captain, they're putting the hospital ships and colony transport at the center of the formation." "That's Admiral Shin," Kim said with a slight smile. He always did think differently than other commanders. The Valian fleet reacted immediately to the arrival of human reinforcements. Supreme War Marshal Thexmore, commanding from his flagship 3 light hours away, received reports of the new arrivals with interest. "Only 12 ships?" he asked his intelligence officer. "Yes, War Marshal. But sir, the composition is unusual. Most of their vessels appear to be support ships, not warships." Thexmore studied the tactical display. In his 3 centuries of military service, he had never seen a fleet bring hospital ships and colony transports to a major battle. It made no strategic sense. What kind of species brings medical ships to a war? He wondered aloud. His tactical commander had no answer. "War Marshal, should we attack immediately? We still have overwhelming numerical superiority." "Wait, let's see what the humans do. I want to understand their strategy before we crush them." The first Valian attack came from a squadron of fast cruisers, testing the human defensive formation. They expected the non-combat ships to flee while the warships moved forward to engage. Instead, something unprecedented happened. The human destroyers and cruisers formed a protective shell around their hospital ships and support vessels. Every time a Valian ship targeted a non-combat vessel, the entire human fleet responded with coordinated fire. "This is impossible," reported the Valian squadron leader. "Sir, they're treating attacks on their medical ships as attacks on their entire fleet. We can't isolate individual targets." What the Valians didn't understand was that the human formation wasn't just defensive, it was a statement of values. The hospital ships weren't just medical facilities, they represented humanity's commitment to preserving life. The colony transport wasn't just a cargo vessel, it represented their dream of peaceful expansion among the stars. Admiral Shin had turned the fleet's apparent weakness into its greatest strength. "All ships, implement Protocol 7, he announced. Across the human fleet, something extraordinary began to happen. The hospital ships opened their manufacturing bays and began producing specialized equipment designed from analysis of captured Valian technology. The science vessels shared their research data in real time with the combat ships, allowing rapid adaptation of weapons and defenses. Most remarkably, the colony transport began deploying construction, drones that created temporary supply, depots and repair stations throughout the asteroid. "Field Captain," called out Kang. "Yoonji from the Defiance's engineering section. The medical fabricators are producing quantum-enhanced armor plating, based on specifications from the Thunderbolt's adaptive systems. We can upgrade the entire fleet's defenses in 6 hours." Song Youngji's voice came from the science vessel. "Curiosity. Admiral, I'm transmitting updated Valian ship schematics to all combat vessels. I've identified 17 critical weak points in their hull design. The human fleet was transforming itself in real time, using their support ships not as burdens to protect, but as force multipliers that enhance their combat effectiveness. The Valians watched this transformation with growing confusion. Their military doctrine was based on rigid ship classifications and predetermined roles. The idea of ships changing their function during battle was completely alien to them. "War Marshal," reported a squadron commander, "the human medical ships appear to be manufacturing weapons. The colony transport is deploying defensive installations. We don't understand their tactics." Thexmore studied the reports with growing frustration. Every time his forces tried to predict human behavior, the humans did something unexpected. They saved enemy prisoners during combat. They brought hospital ships to battles. They turned support vessels into weapons factories. "What kind of species are we fighting?" he asked. The answer came in the form of a broadcast that reached every Valian ship in the system. It wasn't a military communication or a surrender demand. It was something the Valian Empire had never encountered in 3 centuries of conquest. Dr. Han Suyong's voice filled the communication channels. Speaking in carefully translated Valian, "My name is Dr. Han Suyong, Chief Medical Officer of the human vessel Thunderbolt. I am speaking to you as one doctor to another, because I know there are medical personnel serving on your ships." She paused, and her image appeared on screens throughout the Valian fleet. She looked tired but determined, standing in the Thunderbolt's medical bay where Valian prisoners were being treated alongside human crew members. "For the past several hours, I have been treating wounded from both our species. I have learned that Valian and human biology are remarkably similar. We feel pain in the same ways. We heal using similar processes. We both bleed red blood when we are injured." The medical staff on Valian ships watched with amazement. They had never heard an enemy speak about shared healing rather than shared destruction. "I want you to know that we have 17 of your comrades aboard our ship. They were expecting torture and interrogation. Instead, we have given them medical care, food, and safety. Not because we are weak, but because we are human." The broadcast continued with testimonies from human crew members. Yun Hana shared poetry from Earth, describing humanity's hope for peace among the stars. Li Jiho explained how human technology was designed with safety protocols that prioritized crew survival over system efficiency, but the most powerful moment came when one of the Valian prisoners spoke directly to his former comrades. "I am Sub-Commander Velkoth of the destroyer Flame of Victory. I was prepared to die when these humans rescued me from the void. But they did not kill me. They did not torture me for information. They gave me food and medical care and asked only that I tell them about my family, so they could understand who I was as a person." His voice cracked slightly. "In 30 years of military service, I have never been treated with such kindness by strangers. I do not understand why they saved me, but I am grateful to be alive." The broadcast ended with Captain Kim's voice. "We are not here as conquerors or destroyers. We are here as neighbors you have never met. We offer our friendship to any who will accept it, and our respect to all who hear this message." For the first time in the history of the Valian Empire, a military engagement had paused not because of superior firepower or tactical advantage, but because both sides were questioning why they were fighting. In the command centers of 300 Valian warships, commanders looked at their weapon systems and wondered if there might be another way to resolve this confrontation. The small human fleet waited quietly in their defensive formation, protected by asteroids and armed with something more powerful than quantum torpedoes or adaptive armor. They were armed with hope. The asteroid field stretched endlessly in all directions like a 3-dimensional graveyard of broken worlds. Chunks of rock the size of cities tumbled slowly through space, pulled by the gravity of 3 competing stars. Between them, smaller debris created a maze of deadly obstacles that had claimed hundreds of ships over the centuries. Captain Kim stood on the bridge of the Thunderbolt, watching the chaos outside their hull. The ship's adaptive armor was already beginning to adjust to the intense radiation, but their sensors were still largely blind. "Navigation report," he called out. Park Nari wiped sweat from her forehead as she studied the gravitational calculations. "Captain, the computer models are useless here. The gravitational fields shift every few minutes. I'm having to pilot by instinct and sensor echoes. Can you do it?" "Ask me in a few hours, sir." Behind them, the first Valian pursuit ships entered the asteroid field. These were smaller vessels, fast destroyers and cruisers that could navigate the dangerous space better than the massive dreadnoughts. But even they struggled with the chaotic environment. "Sir," reported Ominji from Tactical, 12 enemy ships have entered the field. They're spreading out in a search pattern. Good. Let them come to us. Lee Jiho's voice crackled over the communication system from engineering. "Captain, I have an idea that's either brilliant or completely insane. I'm listening. What if we overcharge the quantum drive not to jump, but to create localized space-time distortions? Small ones targeted at specific points in the asteroid field." Bae Hyun-woo looked up from his science station. "That could work, but the energy requirements would be enormous. And we've never tested quantum field manipulation on this scale." "What would it accomplish?" Kim asked. "We could make the gravitational fields even more chaotic," Lee explained. "Turn the asteroids into weapons. A small distortion in the right place could send a city-sized rock crashing into enemy ships." Kim considered this. It was dangerous, possibly suicidal, but it was also exactly the kind of unpredictable tactic that might work against a superior enemy. "Do it, but carefully. I don't want us creating a distortion that crushes our own ship." The engineering crew began the delicate work of modifying their quantum drive systems. Meanwhile, the Valian ships continued their search pattern, moving deeper into the asteroid maze. "Contact," announced Yoon Hana. 3 enemy destroyers bearing 27 Mark IV. They're using active sensors trying to burn through the interference. "Perfect. Are they close to that cluster of large asteroids?" Oh, Minji checked her tactical display. "Yes, sir. Approximately 2,000 kilometers from the big one we designated Target Alpha." Kim turned to engineering. "Lee, can you create a small quantum distortion near Target Alpha?" "Calculating now, Captain. Yes, I think we can manage a micro-distortion. Just enough to shift the asteroid's trajectory slightly." "Do it." Deep in the ship's engineering section, Lee Jiho and his team fed carefully controlled energy into the quantum drive. Instead of creating the massive distortion needed for faster-than-light travel, they focused the energy into a tiny point of twisted space-time. The effect was invisible to normal sensors, but the results were immediate. Target Alpha, a mountain-sized chunk of rock that had been drifting slowly through space for millions of years, suddenly found its path altered by a few degrees. In the vast emptiness of space, a few degrees didn't seem like much. But when you were dealing with objects moving at thousands of kilometers per hour, small changes created big results. The lead Valian destroyer never saw it coming. Their sensors were focused on finding the human ship, not tracking slow-moving asteroids. The mountain-sized rock struck their hull at tremendous speed, crushing the warship like an insect. "Direct hit," reported Ominji. "Target destroyed." The remaining Valian ships immediately went to maximum alert. Their captains couldn't understand what had happened. Asteroids didn't suddenly change course and destroy warships. It was impossible. "Captain," called out Choi Min-seo from intelligence, "I'm monitoring Valian communications. They're confused and scared. They think we have some kind of gravity-controlled technology." "Let them think that," Kim replied. "The more confused they are, the more mistakes they'll make." The human ship continued its path through the asteroid field, always staying near large concentrations of debris. Every few minutes, the engineering team created another micro-distortion, sending rocks tumbling toward Valian positions. It wasn't always successful. Sometimes the asteroids missed their targets. Sometimes the distortion was too small to affect the rock's path. But when it worked, the results were spectacular. The second Valian destroyer died when a cluster of smaller asteroids, each one the size of a building, pelted its hull like massive bullets. The third ship was crushed when a slow-moving asteroid changed direction just enough to intercept its flight path. "Sir," reported Tactical, "the remaining Valian ships are retreating from the asteroid field." But Kim knew this was only a temporary victory. "Long-range sensors, what's happening outside the field?" Bae Hyun-woo adjusted his instruments. "The main Valian fleet is repositioning. They're not coming in after us, but they're surrounding the entire asteroid field. We're trapped." The captain studied the tactical display. The Valians had learned from their losses. Instead of sending more ships into the dangerous maze, they were waiting for the humans to come out. And with quantum interference generators still active, the Thunderbolt couldn't jump to safety. "Time until our backup fleet arrives?" 36 hours, sir. "Time until our quantum drive overloads from all these micro-distortions?" Lee Jiho's voice was grim. At current usage rates, maybe 12 hours before we risk catastrophic system failure. Kim walked to the front of the bridge and stared out at the tumbling asteroids. Somewhere beyond this maze of rock and debris, 300 enemy ships waited for them to make a mistake. They had proven that humans could be resourceful and dangerous, but they were still vastly outnumbered. "Captain," said Parknari quietly, "I've been thinking about our situation. We've shown the Valians that we can fight, but maybe it's time to show them that we can think." "What do you mean?" "Sir, we've been assuming this is a military problem that requires a military solution. But what if we're looking at this wrong? What if the real battle isn't about ships and weapons?" Han Soo-young's voice came over the communication system from the medical bay. "Captain, you might want to hear this. Our Valian prisoners have been talking. They're confused about why we rescued them, but they're starting to understand that humans are different from other species they've encountered." Kim felt a spark of hope. "Different how?" "They say most species the Valians have conquered were either completely peaceful or completely warlike. Humans are something new. We fight when we have to, but we also try to save lives. They don't have a word for what we are." The captain looked around his bridge. His crew of 37 people had traveled farther from home than any humans in history. They had faced impossible odds and survived through creativity, courage, and teamwork. But most importantly, they had remained human. "Communications," he said suddenly. "Can you broadcast on all Valian military frequencies?" "Yes, sir, but they'll triangulate our position immediately." "Good. I want them to know exactly where we are." Yoon Hana looked confused, but prepared her systems. "Channel open, Captain." Kim took a deep breath. What he was about to do would either save his crew or doom them all. But sometimes the biggest risk was not taking any risk at all. "This is Captain Kim Dae-hyun of the United Earth ship Thunderbolt, broadcasting to all Valian forces. I know you're listening. I know you have us surrounded. And I know you think this ends with our destruction." He paused, looking at his crew. They were scared but determined. They trusted him to find a way home. "But before you attack us, I want you to understand something about humans. We didn't come here to conquer your empire. We didn't come here to steal your resources or destroy your worlds. We came here to prove that there's another way to live among the stars." The asteroid field continued its eternal dance around them, waiting to see if words could be more powerful than weapons. The news of Fleet Commander Karthex's defeat spread through Valian space like wildfire. In the grand war chambers of the Imperial Palace, Supreme War Marshal Thexmore studied the battle reports with growing anger. His forearms gestured wildly as he read the impossible details. "One ship," he snarled to his assembled generals. "One primitive human ship defeated an entire patrol fleet, and you tell me the commander let them escape?" General Vorkane shifted nervously. "War Marshal, the reports indicate the humans possess unknown technology. Their weapons can penetrate our shields. Their armor adapts to our attacks. Impossible. Humans are barely more advanced than the rock-throwing primitives we conquered 3 centuries ago. Their ships are made of simple metals. Their weapons are chemical explosives. But the battle recordings didn't lie." Thexmore watched the human vessel move through space with impossible grace. He saw Valian warships explode from weapons that shouldn't exist. Most disturbing of all, he watched the humans rescue enemy survivors in the middle of combat. "What kind of warriors save their enemies?" he asked. No one answered. In Valian culture, mercy was weakness. Enemies were destroyed completely, without exception. The concept of rescuing hostile forces was so alien that they had no words for it. "War Marshal," interrupted Intelligence Commander Zektar, "we have more troubling news. The human ship is not alone." Thexmore's eyes blazed with fury. "Explain." "Our deep space monitors have detected quantum disturbances in multiple sectors. We believe the humans have sent additional ships into our territory. This was a coordinated invasion." The War Marshal's rage turned cold and calculating. "How many ships?" "Unknown, sir. But analysis suggests at least a dozen vessels using the same space-folding technology." Thexmore stood to his full 8-foot height. "Mobilize the 3rd, 7th, and 12th battle groups. I want 300 ships surrounding that human vessel. If they think they can invade Valian space with primitive technology and alien mercy, they will learn the price of such foolishness." Aboard the Thunderbolt, Captain Kim stood in the medical bay watching Dr. Han Soo-young treat their Valian prisoners. The aliens were recovering from their ordeal, but they watched the humans with confusion and suspicion. "How are our guests?" Kim asked quietly. "Physically, they're fine. Valians are surprisingly similar to humans in basic biology. But Captain, they're terrified. Terrified? Why? They think we're going to torture them for information. They keep asking when the interrogation will begin. I don't think they understand that we rescued them just to save their lives. Kim nodded sadly. The cultural differences between humans and Valians were vast. Keep treating them well, Doctor. Maybe we can teach them something about humanity. He returned to the bridge where his senior staff was gathered around the tactical display. The situation had become much more serious. Report, Kim ordered. Minji pointed to the holographic map. Captain, we're tracking massive fleet movements throughout this sector. The Valians are mobilizing everything they have in local space. How many ships? Conservative estimate is 300 vessels, sir. Destroyers, cruisers, dreadnoughts, and at least 6 planet-killer-class ships. The bridge fell silent. The Thunderbolt had barely survived against 7 ships. 300 was impossible odds. Sir, said Lee Jiho from engineering, I have good news and bad news. The quantum drive recharge is ahead of schedule. We could jump to safety in 18 hours instead of 72. What's the bad news? The Valians have deployed quantum interference generators around our position. We can't jump while they're active. Kim studied the tactical display. The enemy was learning. They might not understand human technology, but they were smart enough to find ways to counter it. Options. Bae Hyun-woo cleared his throat. Captain, I've been analyzing the quantum interference pattern. The generators are powerful, but they have a weakness. If we could disable just 3 of them simultaneously, we could create a gap large enough to escape. How far away are these generators? Spread across 12 light hours, sir. We'd have to fight our way to each one. Park Nari looked up from navigation. Captain, I've been thinking about our mission parameters. We weren't sent here just to run away at the first sign of trouble. Kim raised an eyebrow. Explain. Sir, Command knew this would be dangerous when they sent us. The quantum drive wasn't just built to get us here. It was built to prove human technology could compete with advanced alien civilizations. We're not just explorers. We're representatives, the captain understood. Earth's government had sent them not just to gather intelligence, but to show the galaxy that humanity deserved respect. Running away from the first major confrontation would send the wrong message. Communications, has there been any word from our backup fleet? Yoon Hana shook her head. No, sir. But if they're following the original timeline, they should arrive in 54 hours. 54 hours, Kim repeated. We need to survive 300 enemy ships for 54 hours. Jang Sungmin spoke up from weapons control. Captain, we have one major advantage. The Valians still think like traditional military forces. They expect us to either run away or fight a conventional battle. What do you suggest? Guerrilla warfare, sir. Hit and run attacks. Use asteroid fields and stellar phenomena as cover. Make them chase us through dangerous space where their larger ships can't follow. Kim considered this. Humans had used guerrilla tactics throughout their history. When facing superior enemies, they avoided direct confrontation and used their environment as a weapon. Plot a course through the Keith of our asteroid field, he ordered. Maximum stealth approach. Sir, warned Minji, that asteroid field is considered unnavigable. The gravitational forces from 3 different stars create constantly shifting debris patterns. Perfect. The Valians won't expect us to go there because no sane captain would risk it. Park Nari smiled grimly. Good thing we're not entirely sane, sir. As the Thunderbolt changed course toward the deadly asteroid field, the crew prepared for the most dangerous part of their mission. They were outnumbered 300 to 1, trapped behind enemy lines, and facing technology that surpassed their own in most areas. But they had something the Valians didn't. Understand, the human ability to adapt and survive in impossible situations. In the asteroid field ahead, tumbling rocks the size of mountains danced their eternal waltz around competing gravity wells. Space dust and radiation made sensors almost useless. It was a graveyard where many ships had died attempting passage. Engineering, can our adaptive armor handle the radiation? It should adapt within a few hours, Captain. But we'll be flying almost blind until then. Navigation, can you plot a safe course? Define safe, sir. I can plot a course that probably won't kill us immediately. Kim laughed despite the tension. That'll have to do. Behind them, the massive Valian fleet began to spread out in a hunting formation. 300 warships against 1 small human vessel should have been an easy victory. But as they watched the Thunderbolt disappear into the chaotic maze of the asteroid field, some Valian commanders began to wonder if they were hunting the humans. or if the humans were hunting them. In the depths of tumbling stone and twisted metal, the real test of human ingenuity was about to begin. Captain Kim and his crew had 18 hours to prove that sometimes being small and clever was better than being big and strong. The asteroids waited silently, ready to witness a battle unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. The Valiant patrol fleet dropped out of faster-than-light travel like sharks smelling blood in deep water. 7 massive warships formed a perfect attack formation around the small human vessel. Their hulls gleamed with dark metal armor, energy weapons charged with deadly light. Fleet Commander Karthek studied the strange ship on his main screen. It looked pathetic compared to his destroyers. Smooth curves instead of sharp angles, soft metals instead of battle-tested armor, tiny weapon ports instead of massive gun batteries. "This is the ship that caused such panic?" he asked his second-in-command. "Yes, sir. Intelligence reports it appeared from nowhere using unknown technology." Karthek laughed. "Impossible. Look at it. These humans barely understand basic spaceflight. Their ship is probably held together with metal welds and hope." But something bothered him. The ship wasn't running away. Any sane captain facing 7 warships would try to escape. Instead, the human vessel hung motionless in space, as if waiting for something. "Open communication channels," Karthek ordered. On the bridge of the Thunderbolt, Yunhana's hands moved quickly over her communication console. The alien message came through clearly, translated by their computer systems. "Unknown vessel, you have entered Valiant Empire territory without permission. Surrender immediately or be destroyed." Captain Kim looked around his bridge. His crew waited for his decision. They were so far from home that Earth was just a distant memory. But they weren't afraid. They were ready. "Open a channel," Kim said. Yunhana nodded.
"Channel open, sir. This is Captain Kim Daehyun of the United Earthship Thunderbolt."
"We are peaceful explorers from the Human Federation. We mean no harm to your empire. We request safe passage to continue our mission." The response came quickly. "Humans have no authority in Valiant space. You will surrender your ship and crew for questioning. Any resistance will be met with immediate destruction." Kim sighed. He had hoped for diplomacy, but the Valians clearly preferred force. "Close the channel communications." "Channel closed, sir. All hands, battle stations. This is not a drill." Across the ship, humans moved to their positions. They weren't soldiers by training. Most were scientists, engineers, and explorers. But they had trained for this moment. They knew what they had to do. "Sir," called out Ominji from Tactical Analysis, "the Valiant ships are moving into attack position. Their energy weapons are charging to full power." "Weapons status." Jang Sungmin checked his displays. "All systems ready, Captain." "Shall I target their lead ship?" "Negative. Target their smallest escort vessel. Let's show them something unexpected." The crew looked surprised, but they trusted their captain. Most military forces attacked the biggest threat first. Kim was thinking like a human. The first Valiant energy blast lit up space like a small sun. It struck the Thunderbolt's adaptive armor with enough force to vaporize a normal ship. But the human vessel absorbed the energy, and its armor began to change. The metal surface shifted and flowed like liquid, becoming harder and more resistant. "Armor adaptation successful," reported Lee Jiho from engineering. "We can take several more hits like that before system failure." Kim smiled. "Return fire." The Thunderbolt's quantum torpedo streaked through space toward the smallest Valiant ship. The enemy captain probably didn't even worry about such a tiny projectile. His shields could stop much larger weapons, but quantum torpedoes didn't work like normal weapons. Instead of exploding on contact, the torpedo phased through the shields and exploded inside the enemy ship's hull. The Valiant escort vessel disappeared in a ball of fire and twisted metal. Silence filled the communication channels. The remaining Valiant ships stopped their attack, confused by what they had just seen. "Impossible," whispered Fleet Commander Karthek. "Their weapon went through our shields." "How is that possible?" His tactical officer had no answer. "Sir, our computers cannot analyze their weapon technology. It uses principles we don't understand." The human ship moved again. Instead of attacking the largest Valiant vessel, it targeted another escort ship. This time the Valians were ready. They reinforced their shields and prepared defensive fire. It didn't matter. The second quantum torpedo phased through their defenses just like the first. Another Valiant ship died in silent fire. "All ships concentrate fire on the human vessel," Karthek ordered. 6 Valiant warships opened fire at once. space filled with deadly energy beams. The thunderbolt should have been vaporized instantly, but something amazing happened. The human ship's adaptive armor didn't just resist the attacks, it learned from them. Each energy blast made the armor stronger against that type of weapon. After the third volley, the Valian weapons were barely scratching the human hull. "This is impossible," Karthek said. "Their armor is adapting to our weapons in real time." On the Thunderbolt's bridge, Bei Hyunwoo monitored the armor systems. "Captain, adaptation is working perfectly. But we have a problem. The armor can only adapt to energy weapons. If they switch to physical projectiles, we're in trouble." Kim nodded. "Then we finish this before they figure that out. Target their communications array on the lead ship." Another quantum torpedo launched. This time, instead of destroying the entire ship, it precisely removed the Valian fleet's ability to coordinate their attacks. Without communication, the remaining ships began to make mistakes. The Thunderbolt moved like a dancer among the larger warships. It was small and fast compared to the Valian vessels. Every time they tried to target it, the human ship had already moved to a new position. "Sir," called out Han Soo-young from medical, "I'm detecting life signs from the destroyed escort ships. Some crew members survived in emergency pods." This was the moment that changed everything. Any other species would have left the survivors to die in space. Enemy soldiers were enemies, whether they were alive or dead. Kim didn't hesitate. "Rescue operations. Bring them aboard." "Sir?" Jang Sungmin looked confused. "They're enemy combatants. They're people," Kim said simply. "We don't leave people to die in space." The Thunderbolt extended rescue beams toward the Valian escape pods. On the surviving enemy ships, crews watched in amazement as the humans saved their former comrades. Fleet Commander Karthex stared at his tactical display. The human ship was rescuing Valian survivors while still fighting his remaining vessels. He had never seen anything like it. "Sir, what are your orders?" his second-in-command asked. Karthex didn't answer. He was thinking about something he had never considered before. In 300 years of military service, he had never seen an enemy show mercy during battle. The humans were fighting to win, but they were also trying to preserve life. "Sir, the human ship is hailing us. Put it through." Captain Kim's voice filled the Valian bridge. "Commander, we have rescued 17 of your people. They are alive and unharmed. We offer you the same choice we offered before. Let us pass peacefully, and no one else needs to die today." Karthex looked around his bridge. His crew was waiting for orders, but they looked uncertain. The humans had destroyed 2 of his ships and disabled his communications, but they had also saved enemy lives. "Human captain," Karthex said slowly. "What are you?" "We're explorers," Kim replied. "We came to learn about the galaxy. We didn't come to start wars." For a long moment, space was quiet except for the hum of ship engines. Then Karthex made a decision that would haunt him for the rest of his life. "All ships, stand down. Let the humans pass." His crew looked shocked, but they obeyed. The remaining Valian warships powered down their weapons and moved aside. The Thunderbolt continued on its course, carrying 17 Valian prisoners who were being treated like guests instead of enemies. Behind them, Fleet Commander Karthex watched the small human ship disappear into deep space. He would have to report this to his superiors. He would have to explain how one small ship had defeated his patrol fleet. But most difficult of all, he would have to explain why he let them go. For the first time in his military career, Karthex wasn't sure who the real enemy was. The alarm bells screamed through the Coalition monitoring station like angry metal birds. Officer Veltar's 6 eyes widened as he stared at the impossible reading on his screen. Something had just appeared 200 light-years deep in Valian Empire space. Something that should not exist. "Commander," Veltar called out, his voice shaking. "We have a massive spatial distortion in Sector 7 Alpha. Energy signature is unknown." Commander Zethkol rushed over, his heavy footsteps echoing in the metal corridors. The Coalition had built this station to watch the border between friendly space and the Valian Empire. For 300 years, nothing had crossed that line without their knowledge. The Valians were brutal, but they followed rules. They announced their attacks. They moved in large fleets. They never surprised anyone. This was different. "Show me," Zethkol demanded. The screen displayed a 3-dimensional map of local space. Deep in the red zone that marked enemy territory, a single dot pulsed with strange light. The computer system struggled to identify what they were seeing. "Sir, the energy pattern doesn't match any known ship design. It's not Valian. It's not Coalition." It's not from any of the known species in our database. Sethkul felt a cold fear in his chest. Could it be a new Valian weapon? No, sir. The quantum signature is completely alien. Wait. Veltar's claws clicked rapidly on his control panel. Sir, I'm getting a clearer reading now. It's definitely a ship. Single vessel, small compared to a Valian destroyer. And sir, it's broadcasting identification signals. What kind of signals? Humans, sir. The word hung in the air like smoke. Humans. The newest species in the galaxy. They had barely learned to travel between stars 50 years ago. Their ships were primitive metal boxes with simple rocket engines. They had no energy shields. Their weapons were chemical explosives and metal projectiles. They were so weak that most coalition members forgot they existed. That's impossible, Sethkul said. Humans can barely reach their own moon without exploding. How could they travel 200 light-years into enemy space? But the readings didn't lie. Somewhere in the darkness of Valian territory, a human ship floated alone among enemies who could destroy entire planets. Captain Kim Dae-hyun stood on the bridge of the UES Thunderbolt, looking at the stars through the main screen. They were different stars, strange constellations that no human had ever seen before. He was farther from Earth than any person had ever traveled. Navigation report, he said calmly. Park Nari looked up from her console. Her face was pale but determined. We're exactly where we planned to be, Captain. Deep in Valian space, the quantum jump worked perfectly. Engineering report. Lee Jiho wiped sweat from his forehead. The quantum drive had pushed every system on the ship to its limits. All systems are stable, sir, but the quantum drive needs 72 hours to recharge before we can jump again. Kim nodded. He had expected this. The quantum drive was humanity's greatest secret. While other species used traditional faster-than-light engines that took days or weeks to cross such distances, humans had learned to fold space itself. But the energy cost was enormous. Communications, any contact from local forces? Yoon Hana shook her head. Nothing yet, Captain. But our passive sensors are picking up a lot of traffic. The Valians know something happened. They're mobilizing ships in this sector. Kim walked to the center of the bridge. His crew of 37 people were the first humans to enter enemy space. They were pioneers whether they lived or died. But they weren't here to die. They were here to prove something. All hands, this is the captain, he announced over the ship's communication system. We have successfully reached our destination. We are now deeper in enemy territory than any human has ever been. Our mission is to gather intelligence and return home safely. Every person on this ship represents the hopes of all humanity. We will not let them down. The bridge crew straightened. These weren't just soldiers. They were explorers, scientists, and dreamers. The Thunderbolt carried the best of humanity into the unknown. Sir, called out Bae Hyunwoo from the science station. I'm detecting unusual energy signatures from nearby systems. The Valians are using some kind of space-folding communication system. Very advanced. Can you break their encryption? Working on it, sir. But Captain, their technology is far more advanced than ours in most areas. The only reason we got here is because we developed something they've never seen before. Kim understood. Humanity had survived as a species by being unpredictable. When stronger predators hunted them, early humans learned to think differently, to use tools in new ways, to solve problems that others couldn't solve. Now they were using that same creativity among the stars. Contact, announced Yoon Hana suddenly. Multiple ships approaching from the 7th Fleet Patrol route. Estimated arrival in 4 hours. How many ships? 7 vessels, sir. 3 destroyers, 3 cruisers, and 1 dreadnought. The crew exchanged glances. The Thunderbolt was barely larger than a Valian escort ship. Against 7 warships, they should have no chance at all. Weapons status, Kim asked. Jang Sungmin checked his displays. All systems ready, Captain. Adaptive armor is online. Point defense systems are active. Quantum torpedoes are loaded. Kim smiled slightly. The Thunderbolt looked small and weak compared to Valian ships, but appearances could be deceiving. Human engineers had built their ship differently. Every system was designed to adapt and change. Every weapon could be modified on the fly. Every defense could learn from enemy attacks. Medical Bay status report. Han Soo-young's voice came through the communication system. Medical Bay is ready for casualties, Captain. All emergency protocols are active. This was another difference between humans and other species. Most alien warships carried minimal medical facilities. If crew members were injured, They were expected to fight until they died. Human ships were built around keeping people alive. Captain, interrupted Choi Min Seo from Intelligence, I've been analyzing Valiant communication patterns. Their military structure is very rigid. Each ship follows exact orders from higher command. They don't adapt their tactics during battle. Interesting. What else? They've never faced an enemy that changes strategy in the middle of a fight. Every species they've conquered used predictable battle plans. Kim felt hope growing in his chest. The Valians were stronger, but strength wasn't everything. Sometimes being different was more important than being powerful. All stations prepare for contact with enemy forces. Remember, we're not here to start a war, but if they attack us, we defend ourselves, and we show them what humans can do. The stars waited silently as the small human ship prepared to face the might of the Valian Empire. Far away on Earth, billions of people continued their daily lives unaware that their fate might be decided by 37 brave souls floating in the darkness between alien suns.